Original works. Welcome back. We have Forrest joining us. Thank you, Forrest. And I just wanted to acknowledge, I don't know if folks have heard, Bruce Wheeler has had some bypass surgery, heart bypass surgery.
Oh, jeez.
Quintuple bypass. And that surgery went well. It was like an 8-hour surgery on Friday the 13th. I guess that was the day of the surgery. But I did see his partner, Maria. Actually, Bradley and I were playing pickleball with her on Sunday, and he's doing okay. He's in good spirits. Surgery went well, so just thought I'd update everybody.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he was in ICU for a few days. I think he's just in a regular hospital room for, I think it's about a week or so. Right. So on that note, so just on our agenda is pretty much duplicated what we had last month. We have our meeting minutes. We have an update from Peter on the stone design status and permitting, and work with V-Trans and anything else he wants to share with us. And then we're going to jump back into JB. And I don't know if JB and if Peter were working together in the ensuing weeks after our last meeting, that we're going to look at combining what we're calling our working document into the Westford template, and then also talk about what we were calling a sewer commission, and I was going to advocate maybe changing the name. But anyway, yeah, so that's really, and if I don't know if Tori has anything to share on the grants, but that's our agenda for tonight. If anybody has anything else they wanted to put on the agenda. And JB, you can stay with us the entire time tonight.
Oh yeah, no, I'm good. I am at your service, and I've got a grocery list of sort of yes, no, or ABC questions for you to get us going. So all good.
So last time we had to vacate the room early, so we had a shorter meeting. But maybe if we could just, I would rather leave JB to like give you the full, after we go through what we need to go through, and give you the rest of the time to lead our other discussions. And Tori was going to put up our meeting minutes from last meeting. Thank you, Tori. Okay, and there you go. Can folks see that on Zoom? So we did set a tentative extra meeting on Thursday, January 2nd at 3 o'clock. If that still works for folks to essentially finish up what we don't get to today. And so we can have a product to send to the select board. Okay, any comments on the minutes, thoughts, edits? Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes of November 18th.
Second. Bradley, you guys want a second? I'll second. You have a second? Minutes are.
Yeah, I could second that.
Okay, minutes are accepted. Thank you. Okay, Tori, or Tori or Linda, I should say, any grant updates? And also we did get an email from Emily about the next report. Maybe you guys can just talk about.
Yep, Tori's on it.
Are you projecting?
Work with Linda to finalize quarterly reporting documents before I leave for the holidays next week. We're also working to coordinate with DEC and Northern Borders and other funders on the environmental review process as Stone begins that work. And maybe Peter has more on that, but that's probably the biggest like funding related updates at this point.
And then we got something today about whether we should apply for another clean water.
Yeah, Peter, I don't know if Amy forwarded that email to you or you were included as well, but for the project priority list, is that something that Stone would be able to assist with again this round?
Yeah. Yeah.
The clean water revolving loan.
Yeah, every year we have to fill out the Emily is silent, but she chimed in via the chat that yes, we need to do the priority list application. Pretty critical piece, relatively simple since we've been doing this for several years now. So yes, we'll help fill out that paperwork and make sure it gets submitted.
Is this a new funding source or?
No, it's not a funding source. It keeps us on the sort of the DEC list of projects that are moving forward, really, I guess is the simplest way to say it.
It's separate from the quarterly report?
Yeah.
And Emily's chiming in just in case.
Did you see what?
The quarterly report is the ARPA funds.
Yeah, the quarterly report was ARPA. The Clean Water SRF revolving loan is a funding source that's been used to fund Stone's design work.
Oh, yeah, and that's what she means, just in case we need the loan for any reason in the future. You just want to be on that list, so.
Anything else on the grant side? Grant updates?
I think so.
I can't see can you read those, Linda?
No.
I can.
Fingers crossed, something.
She's pretty much saying, fingers crossed, we don't need any loan, but just in case we're staying on that priority list, so we're in the queue for projects. And then she said, yes, the ARPA quarterly reports.
If we had to bond.
No, there's nothing.
Sort of two separate things.
Okay.
The quarterly report is for the 4 million ARPA.
Right.
Every month or every quarter, we've been.
No, the project priority.
Uh,
The project priority loan, I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's just a separate once a year thing that we do for these projects.
So we already received 125,000.
Yeah, right, exactly, right.
And we're using that for their design.
Yeah.
We have a little bit of money left in that.
Right.
But we should do it anyway. Just in case.
Correct. That was exactly what Emily's saying. Yep. And she's there shaking her head.
Okay.
Okay, well, we'll help with that. Engineering
Okay.
update or?
Peter, would you like to give a Stone update on, let's say, the V-Trans bridge components, 30% design and permitting? Just kind of anything in general you want to cover?
Yeah, so we've been working with V-Trans a lot in the last month, and I think we're in the very final stretches of sort of finalizing everything that will go out in their bid package I did just get another email today or yesterday that was literally kind of the final, hopefully the final rounds of edits. I mean, they have a lot of layers of review over at V-Trans, so I think we're pretty close on that, which is great. And we are making a ton of progress on the 30% designs. Feeling pretty good about them. And we are still shooting for the end of the year, or at worst case, early in the new year for having sort of a deliverable to you folks. As part of tonight's meeting, whenever the time's appropriate, I'd kind of just like to talk about what makes the most sense for both presenting those plans to this board and or the select board and like timing wise in January when that might make sense. We are also, so in terms of those plans, you know, we pretty much have a really good draft at this point, and we're going to be doing some of our internal, you know, back and forth and edits and fine tuning. So we're in a pretty good place. We are also working with Jeff Hoffer, who's the water supply hydrogeologist, and he's going to be doing some. I don't know if I've been keeping up on the exact time frame, but he's planning to do some sampling of the school's water supply and hopefully maybe a few of the adjacent water supplies down on Flatiron Road. And that will help with some of his analyses that he's trying to wrap up in terms of trying to figure out groundwater flow in that area and sort of hopefully demonstrate that we feel good that the school's water supply is adequately protected and that we can document that. So more on that coming. I don't know that I have any of the details, but we've been working with him quite a bit. We've also been working with Oakson, who is the sort of the supplier of the Perk-Rite drip dispersal system that we're going to be utilizing here, and we've been fine tuning that the zones that we are proposing up at the school as part of the 30% design. And it's looking really quite good and promising that based on DEC's current sort of policy around drip dispersal in conjunction with some slightly higher loading rates than we anticipated based on our test pits, that we are probably going to be able to get to the 30,000 gallon per day threshold without using advanced treatment. So we're still working with Rob a little bit on that to fine tune it, but that is looking really quite good, and I think will simplify the project quite a bit, which will be nice. And that's not to say, you know, in the future, the town couldn't consider advanced treatment, but for now, I think we're going to be able to at least get to that relatively easy permitting threshold now. As Tori alluded, we're also starting to move the environmental interest document forward, and Tori's helping us set up meetings with NRBC, the Northern Borders folks, just to make sure that the environmental review and the NEPA review that DEC and the Water Investment Division is doing is the same as what NRBC is looking for. And in the past, that's been a little bit tricky, so we want to just make sure we know exactly what everyone's looking for before we start producing documents and try to make it as smooth as possible.
Peter, can you pause? Can you pause for a minute? I got a few questions on some of the things you already covered.
Yep.
So NRBS, are there requirements in any way going to potentially slow down our timeline? Are they requiring more oversight on the or more permitting that might slow down our timeline?
Yes, potentially, because their review time will yeah, I think that's what we want to discuss in January. I think we'll be able to report more after we've talked to them. But yes, we want to make sure we streamline this so that they don't slow things down.
Okay.
But their review could be, if I'm trying to remember exactly how it could play out. But I feel like it's hard to give them everything they need without the design being completely at the 100% level. So we're going to try to work through some of those nuances. And Emily chimed in. We have had issues with it slowing down in other projects, so she's kind of reiterating that, which is why we want to really have that communication going into everything.
And just for review for the group here, we do not necessarily need that funding as of now.
We will know more as we fine tune our cost estimate, but I think there are a bunch of reasons why we would want to leave our options open with it. One of them being the timeframes, even if it could be like carryover funding after the ARPA if needed. So
it just seems like a double-edged sword where we would like that money as an insurance policy, but at the same time, we could be falling behind on the ARPA requirement, timeline and deadlines.
Yeah, we could talk more about it when we know more. I think it's premature to talk too much about it right now, but after we have those meetings in January, we could maybe talk strategy a little bit more if we need to. Okay.
And the 30,000 gallons per day looking good and without requiring pretreatment, is that what the assumption was previously, and you're confirming that, or did we actually get more gallons per day than we thought?
Can you repeat the question? I think I know what you're asking, but I'm not 100% sure.
It sounded like the 30,000 gallons per day that you confirm. Did you just confirm we don't need pretreatment? Or was that actually, you found out we had more capacity than you originally thought?
A little of both. The biggest change is a change in policy with regard to how the indirect discharge program looks at drip dispersal. And that specifically is that historically they were treating it as any other system where you would have literally 2 times the capacity. So most indirect discharge systems have a primary and a replacement system that get alternated every year. So drip dispersal systems, it doesn't make sense to have that alternating because you don't want to let them rest. But there are zones, and they do kind of rest on a more daily or weekly basis. Right. So up until recently, a lot of our systems have been laid out to have that full 200% design. My understanding is that the indirect discharge program has sort of adopted a policy of allowing the system to be designed 150% of your capacity instead of 200%. So that right there built in a bunch of extra flow. If you've heard me in the past, I was hopeful that there would be a rule change that would be what kind of allowed us to get that extra capacity. The rule change isn't really happening very fast, and that's stalled out. However, because I'm just trying to think of their process that they've used, because it's an innovative alternative system, they were able to sort of change it around that particular proprietary product. I don't quote me on this part of it, but I think that was the way we sort of got around actually needing a rule change. So anyway, moral of the story is it went from 200% over the capacity to 150% with all of our zones, and that gave us a bunch extra. And then in addition,
We were at 20.
preliminary engineering. Go ahead, Jim.
We were at 20 before, Peter. Where were we at before?
We were
That's
under
right.
20.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know exactly. It was like 18 or 19,000 probably. And then on top of that, we were using a soil loading rate of 0.7 based on some of the soils that we were seeing in our borings that we had done to date. And when we did the test pits, we were able to demonstrate that the soils around the actual piping, the drip dispersal, was coarser and could be a higher loading rate. So as of now, we're thinking we're going to get 0.9 out of that versus 0.7. So that added a little more capacity as well. So that all kind of went in our favor, where a phase 2 wouldn't necessarily be needed to get us over that 30,000 mark. From a permitting perspective, 30,000 is sort of the top we can do right now without doing a lot of extra due diligence that we, quite frankly, don't have time for.
That's good news.
Yep.
Just a couple more questions. The hydrogeologist sampling schools' water and some adjacent properties.
Mhm.
Is that flow? Is that chemistry? And if they're looking at chemistry, what if they find something bad before the system goes in? You know what I'm saying? Like,
it's chemistry, but he's not so much the chemistry you're thinking. Not looking for contaminants. More trying to date groundwater and try to make a scientific case that the water that's getting drawn on from the well isn't necessarily the same water that we're seeing in other places. If that makes sense. And it might, I don't quite frankly know the details of all this, so it's probably worth either hearing from him or waiting for his report versus sort of my explanation of it.
when's that coming?
I don't have a specific date other than Amy and I are pushing. We're cognizant of the fact that one of the boxes we need to check is sort of comforting the school that this system is appropriate and safe for the water supply.
So the 30%, you said end of year, maybe early January. I'm just thinking, we have this meeting on January 2nd. Could that be our a potential check-in on that as far as how we want to handle that 30% relative to the presentation to the select board and this group? Because we would have a meeting, looking at my calendar, be tentatively on January 21st would be our next regular wastewater meeting after our special meeting on the 2nd. And then select board, something on this, was it second Wednesday, second and fourth Wednesday?
It's the first and third,
First and
but in
third.
January,
Yeah,
we're meeting on the
first.
second. And I don't know when we're having our second meeting at this point.
Okay. I just wondered, Peter, if we can use that January 2nd date as kind of a check-in, or hopefully we'll have the 30% by then. So
Yeah, I think that probably makes sense. I guess one thing that Amy and I were talking about that sort of made sense was whenever we present this ordinance stuff to the select board, seemed to us to be a logical time to maybe present the 30% designs to the select board also. But we wanted to bounce that off Linda and see if that made sense to her. I couldn't remember from our last meeting what we were shooting for on that front. I know we were trying to expedite it, but I didn't know if we were trying to get it into January or if it was early February or where we landed with that.
Any thoughts on that one?
I'm forgetting, I mean, we
Because-
had that discussion, are we trying to get it somewhere by town meeting or no?
Well, we were trying to meet not only the yes was the short answer, but then we had to take into account what happens if it was petitioned. You know.
I don't think the official date of this presentation was decided, just that it should coincide with the select board meeting.
Right.
So I don't think there's as much of a rush for that as there is for the ordinance and board.
You're talking about the 30%?
Yeah,
Okay.
so that could happen or like the first February meeting, unless you think it needs to happen sooner, Peter.
The 30%.
So what, can you remind, go ahead.
I think the 30%, quite frankly, we, part of issuing the 30% will be DEC's review and Emily's review of our plans. And I would expect her to have obviously a lot more comments probably than the town, since she sees a lot of these. So I think from a critical path standpoint, I think early February for the 30% meeting, is fine. I think it would be a little bit more of a formality and a chance for the select board to ask questions.
I would just like, I would just
my
like
gut
this.
feeling.
Oh, sorry, Peter. I would just like this, the committee to vet it before we present it. So having time to really go over it at a wastewater meeting before the select board meeting. So that would be our regular January meeting, whenever we can talk about the date in a little bit.
I think that would be okay. I guess the only question I would have is if we were, Emily's chiming in that Ashwak will also be commenting as well, and that as a permitter, she's better and quicker. The more she's involved, the better, quicker the permit process will go. Yeah. I guess my only question is if we wanted to pair it with any ordinance meeting so that it was kind of a bigger wastewater meeting. And if that were the case, to your point, Jim, we would probably need another kind of special committee meeting sometime in January, earlier in January, where we go over those plans together. Maybe the following Thursday or something. I don't feel super strongly on how we do it. I think meeting at the next January regularly scheduled meeting and then doing early February would probably be fine.
Just on that note, I am going to be out of town for what our normal scheduled meeting would be, or when?
February or January?
January. So,
You will not
we-
be at the January 21st meeting, Jim? Or whatever it is?
well, it's supposed to be on the 14th.
14th.
Is that right? Sorry,
The
21st.
The 21st.
21st. So I guess I'm not gonna be around for that. So yeah, we should talk about dates here and if we want to have, so we're gonna have a meeting on January 2nd to continue the ordinance commission discussion and maybe take a glimpse at the 30%, but maybe I think what we're saying is we should have a wastewater meeting, I guess, in January, a full meeting before the first February meeting of the select board. That's what we're saying. So that would leave either the week of the 6th, or I could do maybe Monday the 13th, or somewhere in the week of the 6th would be preferable. But yeah, it's something for us to put out. But so it sounds like we need to have 2 meetings in January. And so the 2nd and then one other meeting of this committee. And
Yeah, I think probably, yeah.
do we want to try to set that now?
Yeah,
What are folks thinking for the would you be all set to go? I'm looking at both JB and Peter for the week of the 6th, or
Yeah. From an ordinance standpoint, I'm going to be giving you, after this meeting, I'm giving y'all a draft. I don't see a whole lot of fussing that we have to do, so I think ordinance can be really ready.
we're still gonna have a meeting on the 2nd for the ordinance, JB, or we can.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I think that's a very good idea to really read it through carefully, but shouldn't be a lot after that.
So I guess what I'm suggesting then is maybe we move our regularly, I mean, I don't need to be here, if someone else wants to run the meeting, but it sounds like an important meeting. So I guess what I'm suggesting is maybe we shift the meeting from the 21st to earlier in January, maybe the week of the 6th, to go over both of those important issues.
pick a day.
So you don't have a select board meeting that week?
We do. We do,
The week of the 6th?
January
Oh, you do?
8th. Because we can't meet on January 1st.
The 6th or the 7th, maybe, or,
The 6th evening, local planning commissions in here,
okay,
so you could maybe do the 7th.
the 7th. January 7th work for folks?
Like every single night.
Sorry. It's a free time in late January.
I think it probably works okay for us. The only, the biggest caveat or reluctance, I guess, for me is that, Amy is out and doesn't come back, I think until the 6th. So it doesn't, if I needed like a little bit of input from her, it doesn't give me a whole lot of time to work with her.
How about the 9th?
The 9th would be ideal, especially if we can do it, if folks are available to do kind of what we're doing on the week before on the 2nd and do like a 3 to 5 or something. That would be ideal for me, but I also recognize that you all have other stuff going on too.
Quick show of hands, does the 9th at 3 o'clock work? No. How does 4 o'clock work?
5 works better.
That's
right.
You get out at 3?
Yeah.
So I can't really hear. Were
So
we settling more on
Alan works until
Yeah.
3, he said.
Understood, yeah. It seems like that would be a good one for Alan to be there at too, because he probably has some good thoughts or perspectives on what we'll be presenting. So
We keep it at 5, Peter?
do 5 on the 9th.
9th, we can keep the 2nd at 3, because we already set that.
Yep.
I'm available the 9th at 5 if you needed me virtually.
Okay, great.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, Bradley, did we check with you?
Yeah, I'm fine with that. So no meeting on the 7th, we're gonna move it to 9th.
Yeah,
Right, so we're not gonna have our normal meeting would be the 21st, we're gonna cancel that.
Right.
And we're gonna meet on the 9th, so we'll meet on the 2nd and the 9th, 2nd at 3 and the 9th at 5. Okay, good.
Yeah, are we not doing first and third Tuesdays anymore?
so
I'm just asking because I'm gonna update the website.
we took away the first.
First is gone. Got
We
it.
were just doing the third.
We were
but
doing the
now-
3rd, but we're
now-
just changing it for January.
No problem.
And sorry, Peter, one more question. When is the bridge construction scheduled for, like May?
The bridge is closing March 3rd of 2026.
2025.
They're,
No? Yeah?
no, 2026. They're well, they do
2020.
have construction plan for this year, but the hope is that the contractor, and don't quote me on this because this is just what I'm gathering from our meetings. The contractor will start building some of the new abutments that are a different alignment than the existing bridge. So the existing bridge can continue to be used. They'll build, I think maybe it's only one of the two abutments. And then the following year, the bridge will come out and they'll kind of do everything else.
It
makes sense.
will be open next summer.
Yes,
Yes.
To be working next to it. Okay.
yes, yep.
Okay,
The major construction when the bridge is closed is March of 26 to September of 26.
okay. And Peter, I kind of cut you off there as you were doing your updates because I had a bunch of questions, but did you have anything else?
I don't think so. I think I was kind of right at the end of it.
Okay. All right, any other questions for Peter? Nope.
How long does the beard last, Peter?
So it's a good question. I'm a daylight savings beard guy. So like when we get a little more daylight and we switch our clocks back, you'll probably lose it.
Fair.
Are you striving to look like Bradley?
I would love to. To be honest, I would really like to, but I can't really stand having too much hair on my face. So
I was looking like you earlier today, but I decided to shave it off today.
try to get rid of it. I very well might just get fed up with it and get rid of it, but you never know.
Not important note. Okay, I think JD, we're going to shift over to you, and you have an hour and 15 minutes.
Well, God forbid we have to talk for that long. Okay. All right. So in spite of my best efforts, sorry, please let me yell at my spouse really.
So she wasn't muted. She's not holding up the middle finger.
Sorry, guys. It's only when you start your part of the meeting that your spouse needs something. Okay. So, in spite of my best efforts, I have actually made some progress and have some very specific things that I want to just talk through today so that I can give you a document that you'll actually be able to work with. Okay. Behold, an ordinance. What we talked about last time in November that was really critical. Let me just go through pieces, parts. These are all very basic. Okay. General provisions. Not very exciting. This is all the stuff of the authority to adopt. Now, depending what you want to do with the board, anything board-wise is going to be highlighted in yellow. Those are totally up to you. It can be the select board comprised as the board. You can call it whatever you want, but I think, Linda, it really will be up to you and select board to decide, how many people do we want on it? What do we want to call it? Is it the Board of Sewer Commissioners? Is it some more attractive and less formal name? But that's all just very simple. One thing I want to talk about today is what you're going to charge for. And I think we can simplify it from what we were going to be doing with Westford, the other town we don't talk about. Because you are not likely to have bonded indebtedness at all, and if you did have any, it would be pretty insignificant. In the pure world of utility management, especially with sewer systems, we often split it into a capital charge that reflects the amount of bonded debt that goes into a system. That's the capital cost, and usually you assign your hookup fees to reflect that. That's the cost of having a system there. In your case, your costs are going to be the annual cost to operate the system, and I think, and then any reserve fund that you choose to establish. Now, by Vermont law, you can only put away 15% of your annual budget. Peter, what's the latest-ish O&M cost per year?
I can
mean,
get that
just
to you, but I don't know that I have it
okay.
handy.
Back of the napkin, whatever it is.
I wanted to say, if I had to just pull it off the top of my head,
You do.
60-ish, 60,000-ish.
Okay, so 60,000-ish. So 15% of that you can put away $9,000 a year and add that to the sewer use charge. So those are going to be the two components of expense, however much you put away in a sinking fund each year and what the operating cost is. I don't think it's worth setting up a whole elaborate system with capital charge and operation and maintenance charge for a system this small without a significant amount of bonded debt. But if you get into this and everybody's like, well, where's the capital charge? And I shouldn't have to pay for the capital charge and the new users should pay that, blah, blah, blah. If somebody wants to complicate this, we can do that. I would recommend against it. I think it'll simplify. And now there are people in my house. Okay. It'll simplify both the ordinance and explaining it. So that would be my recommendation at this point. So
Wait, I guess I lost you.
okay.
So I got the fact that it's 15% of the maintenance costs is what the law says.
That's the most that you could of the total annual budget. That's the most you can put away. So if your annual, if the
Yeah, I
annual
get
cost to
that.
operate this, yeah.
Does that mean because we're not bonding, it's gonna be a lot lower because?
Yeah. Yeah, it does.
Yeah,
It means exactly that,
Okay.
Linda.
yeah,
And that's an interesting question for like the league or something. It's sort of like a unanticipated downside of not having debt.
Right.
You can't create, here, have free money, but then you can't put the funds away that you might need. So we could ask the league about that. That might even, I'm going to shudder when I say this, be worth taking to the legislature. But I think for now, having a unified sewer use charge is not a bad thing.
what does that mean, a unified?
So most wastewater utilities, when you look at the cost, how much you're
Yeah.
going to charge people per gallon,
Yeah,
you look at both your cost related to bonded indebtedness,
yeah,
and then you look at that tab that Peter just said for operation and maintenance
yeah,
and your reserve fund.
right,
Often there's a separate charge based on the capital cost of the system. And usually when people connect to the system, the connection fees are based on the cost it's cost the town to keep that sewer system standing while they were not attached to it. So there are different ways to allocate rates. I don't think it's worth doing here. You're not going to have bonded debt. I think a unified rate that just reflects the total that the town is going to put away each year, spend or put in that reserve fund is a far simpler thing to do.
We can do that.
Oh yeah. No, you can set up a unified user charge. You do not have to have a separate cost for capital and operating. But this system is not South Burlington's. It's going to be far easier and far less difficult to explain to people if we just have an ordinance just has a sewer use charge based on the cost to operate the system, the reserve fund, and if you did bond for, $400,000 to do pre-treatment, you could add that cost to the sewer use charge in the future without having to do anything.
Could you give an example? So we set out charges for 1-bedroom studio business. We set out a charge for that. Do we just add on the annual maintenance or set reserve fund? Do we just add that to that and just call it one thing, unified? Well,
Yes.
Is that what you're saying?
Yes. So your capacity, if it's 30,000 gallons. So if we've got an annual budget of $60,000 for operation and maintenance, and you're putting away 9,000, you take that 69,000 and divide it by 30,000 gallons. That's your base user charge per gallon.
Okay.
Now, if in a more complicated system, you're going to separate that charge into, okay, what share of that cost is attributable to bonded debt? What share of that cost is attributed to O&M? What share of that is attributed to high strength waste? I don't see any need to do that math here because you're not going to have much bonded debt. And we really know that the costs are going to be related to two things.
And that 69,000 divided by 30,000 gallons per day, and the 1-bedroom apartment example, we're saying is $25 per month. So how are we converting the gallons per day to 25? Is that's based on
Okay.
the unit?
So the one thing we will have to discuss at some point is whether you want to cap that user charge for residential units at a certain amount.
That's what we've discussed
Yep,
thus far.
we've
Yeah.
talked about it, and that is fine. What I'm saying in talking about the capital charge is I don't see any benefit to also trying to parse out the rate by capital versus operation and reserve.
Yeah, I think we can remove capital from the equation here.
Great. Okay.
I mean, unless
All right.
someone disagrees with me.
Unless somebody wants to go down that rabbit hole, I would recommend.
I don't
not.
see any reason we need to.
Okay. Since we are talking about the rate and on that topic, I do want to make sure that the direction is clear about what the desired cap is per dwelling unit, and if it's going to be different for multifamily versus detached structures, because that's a critical path.
So we previously, JB, discussed $25 a month for a 1-bedroom or studio, and then $40 for multiple bedrooms, but we didn't get into the multiple units that you're discussing. Maybe if you can distinguish. So,
Okay, so how much more per bedroom? No, that works.
25 and for one bedroom or less.
Right,
And then 40 for, I think we said anything more than that, but you're talking about a multi-unit home, which is to me a different category. As a third category. So if it's I guess we hadn't discussed, like, is it if it's a 5-bedroom farmhouse, do we want to charge more than $40 a month versus a 3-bedroom or 4-bedroom? But if it's an apartment building, we're gonna count how many units in the building, how many 1-bedrooms, 2-bedrooms, 3-bedrooms in the entire unit, I'm
right.
assuming.
Let me switch back to our old friend. Where did you go? You were here and now you are lurking somewhere else. I want to go back to our old friend, that policy sheet. No, edits. This guy. Okay. So here is our policy. All right. So we had talked about studio and 1-bedroom, and then 2-bedroom, and then 3 or more bedroom units. So we need to attach a fee to each of those.
Can you scroll over to the right a little bit? Is there another column?
This is nope, that's the end. This is just how much capacity for their fee. But in terms of actually setting up the sewer charge, guys are going to get a flat fee. That has to be established. The way I had run the rate analyses was basically not on bedrooms. For the detached residential structures, it was based on a detached structure principally occupied as a residential dwelling. I don't care how many bedrooms, it was getting billed per month. Then for any kind of multifamily, anything that's not a detached dwelling unit, we were going studio 1-bedroom, got 25. 2-bedroom was 40, 3 or more bedroom, I think we didn't figure out. But apartments, but when you have apartments, they do tend to use less water. So that's the basis for charging them less than a detached dwelling unit.
I thought we settled on studio 1-bedroom at $25 a day detached.
Okay.
And then 2, or I thought we had it at 2 or more at 40.
So this is the preferred one that we had.
Then how did we break out the categories?
Single family in the village, 40.
Okay.
That's all we did.
We didn't
Okay,
see that.
that's fine. Linda, if we want to stick with that, if it's 40 per month for a residential user, and 25 per month for the studio and 1-bedroom, that's cool. We can do that.
And do we see a need for something in between like something that's 4-bedroom or 5-bedroom? I don't know if with the units in the village here, I know there's one, used to be an Airbnb is what I'm thinking, that might have a lot more bedrooms than. It's a fairness issue.
I would say, do people have to get any kind of a permit for Airbnb?
No,
Okay.
Unless we split the difference and say up to 2 bedrooms, it is the 25 and 3 or more is 40. I mean, should we? it seems like that table there is a little bit different than the other table that I was familiar with.
Okay, this was
I don't remember,
in,
I don't remember a two-bedroom.
this was in what we looked at in, earlier this year, but okay, I don't think you necessarily need to, I mean, you could certainly, if anybody has any portion of the dwelling is either becomes an accessory dwelling unit or is rented for lodging, that they have to pay based on the allocated capacity. So if you create an accessory unit in or on your property, it would have to pay a sewer use charge. It could be the flat charge. So say you create a one bedroom, apartment, you get an extra $25 a month. If it's used as lodging, you might want to add on a surcharge equivalent to a studio or one bedroom per unit rented out.
Does
So-
lodging to you mean Airbnb, Julie Beth, or
Yeah,
is that what you mean? Yeah, okay.
So if it was an accessory unit for lodging and it was a two-bedroom, would they get paid, would they pay the two-bedroom rate then?
I would say.
Yeah. Okay, but I guess my question was, did we draw the line at studio, one bedroom was one category and then anything more than
Yes.
that? Because we didn't have three
No, I
categories,
think we
we
did.
had two.
Okay, this is in notes that we reviewed, but we can certainly do we can do whatever your heart's desire. We can say two bedrooms and up, it's $40. I feel like that's a little bit inequitable for the smaller units because two bedrooms versus five bedrooms, you're paying the same $40.
So we just need, so combining the first two rows and then the third row is a separate.
Sure. That Jim, that would differentiate between smallies and detached single family. I think that would be more effective. I'd be more comfortable with that.
And Ellen and Bradley and Linda, what do you think about that?
I just want to make sure whatever we told the people in the public hearing is how we're moving forward. That's all. I don't want
That's what I'm
to.
looking, that's what I was thinking.
Change what we told, and some person came
Do we
and
have that in
remembers
there,
that,
flyer out there?
and then calls us a liar.
Right. I think, yeah,
That's the only thing I don't want that. And I can't find it on the website.
Okay. What I'm writing down is that the fees would be studio one and two bedroom is going to be 25 a month. Three bedroom and up. Hello, feline. Three bedroom and up is 40 a month. If you add an accessory dwelling unit or rent the space for lodging, it's an additional $25 a month.
Hey, JB, I kind of remember at last meeting, we were talking about not actually setting these rates till the commission was in place and like didn't have to be part of the ordinance.
Yes. But I just need to, it doesn't, but I do need to establish that in the ordinance, it's going to need to say that the board will establish flat fees. Everybody else is going to be the remaining budget divided by the gallons.
and when you say, the accessory unit, or if it's for lodging will be, based on the allocated capacity, what we're really saying there is it's gonna be however many bedrooms that are being rented out, that's what they're gonna be charged for, in addition to if they're living on site, if they have a three-bedroom apartment, a three-bedroom house that the family's living in and they rent out an additional three bedrooms on Airbnb, they're gonna pay.
I would recommend not trying to do it by bedrooms. I think you're going to end up wrapped around the axle. I would say if any portion of the structure is to be rented, an additional $25 per month shall apply. And if an accessory dwelling unit is created, that's $25 too.
No matter how many units though?
I
No
mean,
matter how-
you're dealing with at some point, Jim, I think it's going to flip over into a zoning issue. If you have a 5-bedroom house and you're renting out 2 of those spaces, I would guess at some point it's going to cease to be a principal use will cease to be a single family dwelling, and the zoning would regulate it differently. So I would rather not borrow that trouble. I'm what we need to do in the ordinance is establish that the Board of Sewer Commissioners is going to set a flat rate for certain categories. Everybody else is going to pay based on their allocated capacity.
I guess what I'm just getting at is the allocated capacity easier to figure out? It's not.
Okay, it's much easier to figure out in general, but then it's going to be a much higher charge on the residential. What your ordinance has to say is this is how we're going to divide up the cost to operate our sewer system. These categories of users will pay a flat rate. And then the Board of Sewer Commissioners, once you know what that chunk of revenue will be, then you take the remaining cost and divide it among the gallons represented by the remaining users, including the town.
Okay.
And then people who say you've got a 500-gallon allocation for your commercial business, you'll pay 500 times the sewer use charge. And the town will pay the portion that's unallocated capacity or a town building.
That sounds good. So just so we're on the same page, so it'll be 2 studio, 1 bedroom or 2 bedroom at $25 a month. 3 bedrooms or more at $40 a month.
Right.
And then what you just said as far as the accessory units or lodging.
Right.
Based on allocated capacity. I just want to check in.
No, accessory dwelling would be 25.
Okay, 25.
And I would recommend lodging any portion of a dwelling unit that is rented where it's still its zoning designation is a dwelling unit. So it hasn't flipped over zoning categories. That would be another 25 per month.
Is everybody okay with that? Bradley, Alan, Linda, I just want to make sure we're all on the same page here. That's important.
Hey, JB, one thing that, I guess I think we've referenced the 30,000 gallons a day quite a bit, but I just want to acknowledge that we all of a sudden now have a huge surplus of extra capacity that probably won't get used for a very long time. So I think we need to probably scale it back to some sort of a baseline for the sake of divvying things up. Otherwise,
I think you're right.
Skewed in a really bad way.
Yep.
Yeah, true.
Okay, I will need the one thing I will need before the January meeting is some kind of schedule from Amy, if she's available, of the anticipated users and the gallons.
Yeah, we have that.
Yep.
So we can get that over to you again, or at least get you the latest and kind of maybe give some sort of a proposal of where to draw that line.
Yeah.
So did I hear you say that so I was reading somewhere in here that the town will have 20% of the reserve capacity? And did I hear you say that the town will be paying for that?
Well, that's very much so. And that's been in all the illustrations. So there's going to be capacity in that system that is not allocated to any user. And there's an annual cost to operate the system. So
I think we've
unless
been
you,
tabling that discussion though, up until this point, JB, because we didn't really know how much extra capacity there would be.
but yeah, understood. All of the rates have shown some share of excess capacity being paid by the town.
So I would
If you,
go ahead, yeah, I understand.
yep,
All right.
because
And
Linda, if you fix the residential rates
I get it.
and you got a lot of capacity, you're going to have a really disproportionate number on your non-residential users.
So something I didn't think about, but I was reading this that we had 20%. So I would hope that when you meet with the select board, we have some kind of idea, because they need to know.
Because we did have some numbers we're putting out to the public on what it would cost for the town's share of the O&M costs.
Okay.
Based
How
on the
much-
assessed value, which we were saying was going to be
How
very
much did
low.
you tell how much did you tell them would go on the tax rate total? How many dollars were going to be allocated to the town budget and thus the tax rate?
I don't know if we ever said,
$5 or $8 per 100,000 or something.
Okay, but how much money?
no, we
Was
never
that
said the
assuming?
amount. We never said an amount.
But if you go backwards from $5 on the tax, I mean, from some amount on the tax rate, there's a dollar value attached to that.
Yeah, I'm not sure where that came from.
Well, probably some of I mean, we had some of the preliminary spreadsheets that we're working on with you, Julie Beth.
Okay. Yeah, right. There was a lot of back and forth about how much is going to go. Sorry.
I'm not making you feel bad or anything. I'm just saying, I would hope that when we have the meeting with the select board, that we know kind of what that's gonna be, so they know. I
Well,
mean, there's no turning back at this point.
Okay,
The
but
voters
again,
voted yes.
okay, again, there are only three sources of money to pay for. There are three sources of money. The town tax, general tax rate, non-residential users, who are not that many, and your residential users. If you fix the residential users
Yep.
and you fix the town share,
One thing I'm just trying to wrap around my head. So this 30,000 gallons per day, that's a new number. It was 1819. So let's just say we have 10,000 gallons per day more than we thought we had based on what Peter.
that doesn't change the annual cost of the system.
Yeah.
Right. That's what I'm
It does
saying.
not change the annual cost.
So the numbers shouldn't go up then because we're
The
not.
numbers shouldn't really change. I mean,
No.
that's what I was saying. We really just need to fix the gallons per day on whatever we were assuming before.
Right.
So
I don't
that
think the 30,000, the new 10,000 gallons, that should not have a bearing on the O&M costs.
Correct.
So I don't think we need to worry about that is, I guess what I'm saying. What we figured out before is going to stay.
I agree. Yes.
Okay. I just have to be able to write it into the ordinance in a way that the town, okay, so we're mixing and matching. I've got the fixed costs. The ordinance needs to say something about how the cost will be apportioned between the town and commercial users. Now, you could simply say that there will be an annual determination of, the rate per gallon of non-residential use. You just don't want it to be arbitrary. Like, we don't feel like paying this much of our capacity fee anymore, so we're going to raise the non-residential rates, and then they have to pay it. So you do want to have some basis for how you're going to go about making that determination every year. So we'll have the flat fee for residential. I'm just putting them in here now. And then fee for all other users. Okay. Okay. All right, so we're going to have one sewer use charge. We're going to have the flat fee. Then we get to, does the town want to reserve some share of this capacity? You're going to have a fair amount. I don't think there's any harm. Peter, I don't know what, if it is in fact 30,000, if it's 18,000, it's not going to be oversubscribed, at least initially.
That's my feeling, is that they can kind of see how things play out over the first couple to 5 years and make decisions accordingly.
I would agree. So I don't know that you need to reserve more than maybe 10%.
Are we required to reserve something?
No.
Okay.
Nope. You can give
It's
away
up to-
all the gallons that your permit says and be like, sorry, got no more. But
And this is then you threw out 10%, but that's of the surplus. So if we had 10,000 gallons per day surplus, is 10% of that number?
well, usually you do the total system capacity. You take some portion of the permitted capacity of the system as your reserve.
So 3,000 is what we're talking about, the 10%.
Again, it depends on what the permit ultimately says.
Peter and JB, what would you recommend that we set the town has as a reserve?
I guess my recommendation is not to take any reserve right now, but to reserve the right to create a reserve if you want it, if you
Okay.
see it
I
going
think
faster
that,
than
yeah.
you want.
Okay, so there's no way we can use it that we don't have to worry about that.
JB, what do you think about like setting some controls on and I don't really know anything about this, but setting some controls on like one or two users not being able to, take it all. Do you know what I mean?
Well,
Like
that,
10,000
yeah.
gallons per day really isn't that much in the grand scheme of like some giant brewery or distillery, maybe big large scale food processing.
Okay.
Is there a way to kind of at least give the town a little bit more control over that?
Yes. And I think we have it. So the section 10 in the draft, which again, I'm fixing things that are on my, okay, in future town may. I just need to make notes. Town may establish a reserve. Okay. In this draft, there's a fairly rigorous capacity allocation procedure for anyone who is doing something more exciting than I'm building a house or I'm doing an addition. I need a zoning permit and additional septic capacity now. So owners of real property can apply for a preliminary approval and capacity allocation. And this sets out that if you're going for fun, if you're just, again, I'm making my house into a duplex. I need 245 gallons, the end. You just get final. You get your zoning permit and you're final and you're good to go. Pay your fee and off you go. But if somebody's thinking like about food processing or a brewery and they're not going to go for their land use permits yet, okay, this is how this works. You apply for preliminary capacity application, you say, well, I'm thinking about doing a brewery. We're going to make more IPA. We're going to put the Alchemist out of business. And that includes calculation of wastewater flow, volume, strength, et cetera, plans and, plans and specifications to the extent that you have them. Okay. That's 1 year. That gives you a year. That capacity is reserved as yours for 1 year. And then if you still don't have your act together, you have to come back to the board if you want to extend that for an additional year, and you can only do it for a total of 3 years. I would also recommend that sewer use fee, I would also recommend that you require anybody who goes beyond a year to start paying the sewer fees. Or maybe 2 years. We were doing, because it could be hefty. So if somebody wants to tie up that capacity for more than 2 years, they got to start paying the fee. And that should be sufficient to dissuade people from taking 10,000 gallons of the system.
Linda, what do you think of that?
I think it's too long.
1 year, well, we originally, JB had it 1 year, and she just changed it to 1 year, is that what you're thinking?
Give them 3 months. I mean, if they didn't start, if they didn't have something going, they can't just sit on it.
Okay. Just devil's advocate, Linda, there's a real chicken and egg thing that happens with permitting. You can't get your Act 250 unless you show that you've got wastewater capacity, and then you'd be paying your wastewater capacity without your Act 250. So I think giving people 2 years where they can say, hey, look, I have this capacity, now I need my other permits, would be fair. Beyond that, you want them to start paying you.
1 year.
How about what about like a 1 year with a possible 1 year extension or
We
something?
can write a letter saying that we will give them their stuff, but
I like what Peter just said
Well-
as a good compromise. A 1 year with would you say an option for extension of 1 more year, Peter?
Yeah, demonstration of progress or something.
Okay, so you're saying you'd give people 1 year and then they start paying?
No, I'm saying 1 year, and then if they need another year, they can request a
Well,
second
yeah,
year.
that's what this has, that you can do 2 requests, but when would you make them start paying? This has been written.
Oh, yeah, I see the way you wrote it. Yeah, so it's beyond 2 years, they're definitely paying. I guess my question is, if somebody is tying it up for 2 years and it's pretty clear they're not going anywhere with it.
Then
Like-
they've got to start paying, so they're going to drop
Well,
it.
Yeah, but like if you're a year into your permitting and like there's nothing to show for it, and you don't have any design plans, and you're just like literally sitting on that for 2 years, that's kind of a long
Okay,
time
but
to have
that's
it
the
tied up.
board may issue. I mean, we could add in here, the board may at its discretion refuse issuance of the extension if the applicant has not demonstrated progress towards the okay.
Can I ask you a question about the term board? I saw you had in the definitions, board meant select board.
Well, not necessarily. That's your Board of Sewer Commissioners. Again, it can be the select board, or you can set up a board of sewer commissioners. My understanding, Linda, is there's a desire to set up a board that has select board plus people, right?
Yeah, Board of Sewer Commissioners.
Right.
So I just want to make sure people know who the board is.
Yes,
It's not the select board, it's the Board of Sewer Commissioners.
right, which must include members of the select board, but, or at least I thought you were going to include members of the select board.
Yeah,
Or at least, I think it was said at least one.
two.
Or two?
It's two. In
Have-
this thing is two.
Okay, that's the bylaws. The select board just has to set it up. Your bylaws are, I'd rather not detour into that right this instant so we can get
Right,
through
but
some of
what I'm
these.
saying is if someone just reads it and it says the board, I was confused when I read it.
Okay.
Which board? The select board or the sewer board?
The big ordinance here, Linda,
Yeah.
board means Board of Sewer Commissioners.
And that's in the definitions, right?
That's what I was asking you. It says the board means the select board. All right, great. That's all I asked.
So while we're discussing definitions, can we stop calling this sewer commission because it's not really a sewer? I guess I just have a problem with the semantics. Can we just say a wastewater commission? Is that acceptable for legalese and everything else? We don't really have.
I'm only going to say that
it's not
title,
really a sewer.
I know that you don't
Laws.
feel like it's a sewer. The state statute talks about boards of sewer commissioners.
We can't say wastewater. Okay.
That's what they
You
call
could,
it.
but it's they're exercising authority pursuant to 3614, which only talks about sewer commissioners. I would just,
Yeah.
if you
Okay,
really
so
want
there's a
to,
legal,
you
so
can,
there's a legal component here.
there
Yeah.
is a legal reason for that because of the statute.
Okay. All right, well, let's, can we move forward?
Okay. Got the board.
Board of Sewage Disposal.
Um, so do we need to say that?
Sure.
You mark it up however you want.
No,
The rest of the state uses Board of Sewer Commissioners. I don't care. It's you do whatever you want to do.
I guess what asking someone to serve on the sewer commission is, I don't know. Maybe wastewater commission sounds better if you're asking someone to serve on it, but maybe that's a moot point. It doesn't matter, I guess.
Usually when they have both, it's the Board of Water and Wastewater Sewer Commissioners. They had both on there, they don't, and they have both. That's what they do.
That's okay. We don't have to parse this out now.
I'm gonna quit.
All right, so where are we next, JB, on the?
Okay, so
so we have
length of
that-
time, if I could please, I'm just gonna try to close the loop on, we're not gonna split the capacity charge. I just had a list here I would love to get through so that I can give you an ordinance that you can work with. We talked about reserve, length of time anybody can tie it up. I'd like to finish that conversation. The way this is set up. Okay, we've got the ability to, okay, you've got the ability to make people show progress. And then there's a final capacity. And that is when okay, let me just go back to this. Basically, this is a two-step process for people who are getting permits. There's the preliminary, which is sufficient to go for your permits. And I want you to see this. It's not a binding commitment, and you can revoke it. So, but a preliminary may be used by an applicant as evidence there's a sufficient system capacity for proposed development. It's enough to go through permitting. But if there were some galactic issue, the system is damaged, or you've got something else going on, the town, without that final capacity allocation, can revoke that permit without getting sued. So hopefully it never comes to that. The final capacity allocation really gets people to the point where they have the right to bring in a plumber and physically attach to this system. So again, if you've got that simple zoning permit, you just get your final. If you're doing something big and it's going to take a couple of years, you get preliminary and then final. Final requires them to start paying their fees. There it is. So they got to start paying. And if for any reason they don't actually build the building, it expires after 3 years. It's like a zoning permit. Okay, you said you had your financing, you're ready to dig your hole. You haven't done anything with it. But if they've been paying their fees, it expires in 3 years. So say they were actually paying their fees, construction got stopped midstream, their capacity allocation would expire eventually. This is a question. I have 2 questions on here about waivers. Would you want the Board of Wastewater Marvelousness to be able to waive fees or waive the payment of sewer connection fees in the event of financial hardship? You are not required to do so. Some places do.
You seen that? Or do you not know?
I haven't.
It seems like that's a more of a select board decision in my mind than the sewer commission decision, but we'll have, I don't know.
If it's in the ordinance, it has to be in the ordinance or not.
It sounds
Correct.
sounds more like one of those emergency situations, someone's system just failed, but they need time to pay the connection fee. Type of thing.
I'm just wondering, is this already being accounted for in capping the fees? Or is this
Well, this
separate?
isn't so much ongoing charges, Tori, as if you are coming in and saying, look, I want to do, my nonprofit wants to do this cool thing, and we're stuck in permits, and if we have to pay the sewer charges, our whole project's going to fail. This is like connection fees and capacity fees.
I think it just puts a burden on the users that are on the system that we're trying to keep the fee down.
Different animal. This is before they connect.
Oh,
Are we gonna have a connection fee? Essentially,
Yes.
they're gonna need a wastewater permit.
Yep.
And
No,
they're
I
gonna-
would.
and they're gonna be required to pay for the hookup. So,
Right.
but we don't have a specific, why would we have, in addition, have another fee on top of that?
Because if they're reserving, that's what we've just been talking about. If they're reserving capacity before they connect, that after 2 years, they need to start paying for it. If it's taken them longer than that, or they're under construction, you've got to
Right,
start
so you-
paying your sewer fees.
Right, but you're talking about a waiver I thought you were talking about a waiver, which is for a hookup fee is what you described.
You can waive that. That's part B of my question. Right now, I'm talking about people who've reserved capacity but aren't discharging, but would otherwise be required to be paying the ongoing fees. Do you want the ability to give them a break from doing that?
I don't know where the money will come from.
Well,
If you
you're
get
not, you don't,
credit.
this is when you don't have to make up the money or pay their fees for them. This is before folks are connected to the system. Think about a situation where there could be an organization that wants to build on the Nazarene church land.
Yeah,
And it's 2 years in, and they've got their capacity allocation from you. At that point, they can say, look, we're making progress, but we need another year before we're going to be able to start construction. At that point, this ordinance that we've just been talking about, they would have to pay the fees associated with that allocation, whatever it is. 9 here would let the board say, okay, it's okay. You can take another year and not pay us for the capacity during that time.
Wouldn't it be, so wouldn't it just be easier to say they would get an extension on the time and not a waiver on the fee?
But
It's
the
all about
extension
money.
comes with the obligation to start paying in
Yeah.
order that you not have people tying up the capacity without any cost to them. If there's never a cost to holding that capacity for a long time, as Peter had noted, there could be the incentive for people to purchase that capacity and sit on it without ever giving you the user base you need to keep your system going.
Yeah, I'm not seeing a reason for the waiver, I guess is what I'm coming back to, but.
Okay.
Linda
So what
feels
that
about
means
it.
is if people don't want to pay, they'd probably just have to start over, which may be fine.
This is after 2 years.
Yep.
I don't know. I mean, there's not really much room for development in this wastewater. Somebody tears down the house.
Julie Beth, do you see any reason not to have that flexibility?
No, I think it's more typical than not to have the flexibility.
I mean, I think your nonprofit example might be a good example. I mean, like, I mean, I don't know.
Well,
Some
see,
organization that isn't really for profit doesn't really have the means to keep it going, and or just they're stumbling to fundraise or whatever, and the town feels like it's going to be something that they want to see happen.
Yeah.
So, I don't know, because it's a may, not a shall, I guess we could leave it in, like, I could be comfortable with it.
Okay, I'm going to leave it for now. We can come back to this in January if you noodle on it a little more.
Okay.
The other one is a connection fee. And to someone's question, I'm sorry I didn't register who it was. Yes, you can and should charge a connection to folks who connect after this system is built. Because all of you have gone through the grief of creating this system, and there's been a public investment in creating it. And if they come to it later, that's part of their share of the cost of having that system available.
So just so we're talking about a DEC wastewater permit, which would require a design, an engineer
No, I'm
design.
talking, no, no,
But this
no.
isn't, but this is in, I'm just talking about the full cost to hook up, someone that doesn't hook up right away. They have to hook up later, in addition to the DEC permit fee and
Correct.
hiring an engineer, having it designed, paying a contractor to build this thing. We would, on top of that, have a town of Wolcott fee. It just seems like
Correct.
this is really hitting them over the head with a hammer pretty hard.
Jim, that's why folks should connect now. And
Right.
it is not at all, it would be deeply unusual not to have at least, anywhere from $500 to $2,000 as a town hookup fee. You've established the system, you're keeping it operating. It's there, it increases their property value. Yes, they have to get a contractor to connect and everything, but the town has created value there, and this is part of how you get it back.
Because I think we had this discussion, I don't know if you were at the meeting when I asked Peter, how much is it gonna cost someone to hook up later? And what'd you come up with, 15,000, Peter, 10 to 15,000?
Well, that's the thing. They're gonna need to have a contractor install that 2-compartment step tank with a, septic tank on one side and pump station on the other with the pumps and controls and everything. So, right there, you're probably talking 20 grand. So I don't personally, I think it's worth leaving this connection fee in there. I think that the commission can decide what they want to set that fee at. And my guess is in most cases, you're going to want that fee to be really reasonable and you're going to want more users because you want to bring down the cost for everybody.
Correct.
And let's just hypothetically, if someone that meets the opt-out option, their system is in place, it's a new system. It's working fine. It was just put in 5 years ago. It was approved by DEC. And so they meet the opt-out requirements. And then for some reason, if that system fails,
Yep.
that even though they met the opt-out, they're gonna have to pay 20,000+.
Well, that's what,
correct.
they pay more than that to put a new septic system in.
And
Yeah,
all towns do that, big or small, it's like.
Who, if they aren't paying for it, who's gonna pay for it?
yeah. I mean, they have to pay
for
for it.
They
And
have to
20,000 might be on the high side if I mean, we're not talking about anything super fancy, but
I guess part of me wonders if we have the money to hook everybody up in all the businesses and municipal buildings in town. Now, do we build all the septic tanks now, even if someone doesn't hook up? Because we have
Are
the
they
money
gonna let you on their property to do that?
Right.
I mean,
No.
Right.
You could leave a stub or something there to hook on later to out of the right of way. And then it's there. Which might be the long thing.
Yeah,
to do.
at least seems you need a stub, but we have the money to build all these septic tanks now.
If they
if they don't,
haven't figured it out, that's their problem, I guess, at this point. I mean,
Okay,
we're offering it free now.
exactly.
right.
Exactly.
I
Yeah,
mean, it's a gamble.
okay, I
this
get it.
is leading horses to water.
So,
Um,
so there'll be a
but
fee, and we have to
There will be a
determine,
fee.
we'll determine what
However,
that is.
In some communities, and generally I would recommend against this. In some communities, one of the few incentives we have in Vermont for affordable housing or other things that we really want to happen is to waive sewer connection fees. So for example, Essex, South Burlap, Colchester, in places where you've got big sewer systems and pretty hefty connection fees, sometimes those are waived or reduced for affordable housing. Do you want the authority to do that?
And who would pay for it
Who would pay for what?
if we reduce the fee and the fee?
It's the
Is-
sewer charge, Linda. It's not the
Oh.
ongoing, it's the connection charge. Sorry, it's the connection fee. That's not part of your annual sewer use charge.
I would think that would be a good
You could,
idea,
That would be-
but
that would be set in.
I mean, we are so
or
short on
decide
housing
that
in the
later on.
state and having, if it meets our other zoning requirements as far as out of the floodplain and everything else, and we found a spot. I don't know, but that's just my personal opinion. I don't know if
If
that's.
someone found a spot on top of the hill, put something up on top of the hill, like there's a pump station with a gravity down there. If they were building something above the floodplain.
Right, if they could build if someone came into town and they bought that mobile home that's for sale on the north side of Route 15, out of the floodplain, and they said, we're gonna tear down we're gonna get rid of that mobile home, and we want to put in a 2-unit, multi-family unit housing. It seems like that would be in the town's best interest, in my opinion. Those sites are gonna be hard to find in the village, that would, for a new construction to meet, like a multi-unit affordable housing or whatever it's gonna be.
Some of the houses on that side where they have bigger lots behind,
Yeah,
that would be the other one.
right. Something on the north side of 15. I don't know, Linda, is it, seems like in the town plan, it's a priority to build affordable housing?
It's in the legislature, and we'll be changing our zoning.
You will be?
All towns have to. What's it called, Act something? Huh?
Act.
Yeah, all towns have to change their zoning.
And is it just that one exemption, JB, or can you think of other ones?
I mean, this is the one where as Linda said, there's a basis in statute, there's an actual definition of affordable housing. You can easily overcomplicate this. Or simply say, or for, what you don't want to do is just let the board decide to give everybody a free pass. Because there should be some cost recovery by the town for keeping this system, for implementing the system.
That statute that you're citing there, is that the same one as the Home Act?
No,
Okay.
nope. It's just the definition of affordable housing.
No, I think it might be a good idea, but I don't know select board members here feel.
It's a May. It's a May. So they can take it out if they hate it.
Good point. It says
Shall have the authority to. It doesn't mean must.
okay, where's the May?
Well, upon receipt of a written request, the board shall have the authority to reduce or waive, and for any other use which the board determines is in the public interest. Shall have the authority to simply means that they can if they choose to. It doesn't say that they shall waive the fee.
Right.
It says they shall have the authority to.
That seems like seems okay to me.
You only get problems with this if you've got a board that's like, we don't want to make anybody pay. We think it's dumb, and then they just don't even enforce the policy. But if you got an affordable housing, it can be a way to make it more desirable to locate, though I think, yeah.
Okay, I think
Okay.
we're all okay with leaving that.
All right, great. And then the last thing, just to be complicated, the last thing on my grocery list for today was, did I get our November discussion right in terms of who gets to keep their on-site system if they really want to?
Opt out.
All right, so here's what I got for the opt-out, and we're gonna fix it if it's not correct. All right. Within the service area boundaries, no existing on-site sewage system may continue to be operated, expanded, or replaced, and no new on-site sewage system may be established and operated except. All right. A, principal structure and the system are outside the 500-year floodplain and state of Vermont mapped river corridor. So if by some miracle your whole structure and the septic system are outside the floodplain of the river corridor, fine, good luck. Or, this is where it could get gummy. This is my transcription from November. the system was constructed after 2007, after the new rules, and it hasn't failed, and you have a demonstration, you get an engineer to make the demonstration that there's sufficient capacity for a compliant replacement system.
JB, the or between A and B, shouldn't that be an and?
Yeah.
All right, that's much more strange. That was my part of my question. My notes show a bifurcation. My brain, lizard brain says, if people were completely outside those two, that's fine. They can put in a new septic system. They can stay on their system. Or you got something within the floodplain and you meet this very stringent test.
Well, the or would not take into account all the homes on the north side of Route 15 that are out of the floodplain, but maybe shallow to bedrock, maybe lots too small.
Then they're,
You know what I'm saying? Like that.
Yeah. I think
Okay.
you're right, Jim. It should be an and.
all right. Okay, then that's pretty much you're gonna have no one is gonna be opting out. Okay.
Which was sort of
Which is the idea. Okay.
that was the original idea,
Oh,
to keep
All right.
it affordable for everyone else.
Okay. Okay. So if this tracks,
how does that track with that? Sorry, JB, we have
No.
Linda has
Can you just move up to so I can read the beginning again?
yeah, you bet.
All right, so they have to follow all those criteria.
These are the ones, this is familiar, Jim and Pete, because this is what I thought I got down from our meeting in November.
So we're saying it has to be out of the 500-year floodplain. It has to be constructed after September 7th with a state permit. It can't be failing. And it has demonstrated sufficient capacity to support a fully compliant replacement
System.
Well, there are some ors in here that it's not all ands, right?
Okay.
The or could be between B and then the combination of C and D.
JB, just for clarity, can you make your ands at the end of the sentence in caps?
Yes. And what I'm going to do
Ands
is
or ors?
let me take the shading off real quick. The shading was so I didn't lose track of things. No color. Here we go. Okay. So I'm going to make the ors bright, the ands and the ors bright red. Ready? Woo! Look at that. Isn't that exciting?
And I think Peter's correct on some of those ands could be ors below.
All right. That's why we're having this conversation. So bloop.
This is really important.
Yes, it is. I think I got him. E is just, you got to have, it's your expense, not the town's, to prove it.
Peter, you saying between B and C could be an or?
Yeah, I think I'd move B to just simplify it a little bit, move B to the end and then put an or, because that I think we decided could be a standalone. Like get out of jail free. Well, I take that back. You need the not failing part of it. So if you have an existing system built after 2007 and it's not failing, you can keep it. I think is what the committee decided. Does that sound right, everyone?
Yes.
And
After
if you've done
after
that, you don't need,
2007.
it's not an and with getting a designer or professional engineer to do anything because you've already done that. It's done.
So in 2007, when they designed systems, did they also have required to design an alternate?
Replacement. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, or
Yep.
I think that's the year I think that's the year the 150% rule and the mounds not needing a replacement system came into effect also, which you wouldn't, well, Linda, to follow up on that, if you in 2007, you know, you might not have a replacement system for a, you know, any of the houses in the village. If their system had failed in 2007 and they followed the best fix approach and they have a brand new system that's probably not great but pretty decent, and then maybe they're still paying on it, which I think is why this committee decided they wanted to kind of give those people an out. They would not necessarily have a replacement system, Linda.
Okay.
So I'm confused on the and or. It has to be out of the 500-year floodplain. If I'm looking at 1A and A1 and 2 and 3. Now the or is confusing me.
I think you
Okay,
got
we've
this,
got-
JB, right now, though.
Okay, we've
I
got
think you're getting
two
close.
different pathways.
Yeah.
Two different pathways to keep your system. One is it's a pre-2007, but it meets everything under A.
So I guess what
The
we're saying
other-
is, oh, sorry.
Yep, nope. The other pathway, though, is B. It was constructed after 2007 and it's doing fine.
So let's walk through a B example. So
Okay.
if it's BA, it was built after September 2007, and it met the rules and it hasn't failed, but what if it's within the floodplain?
Yeah, that's my question.
Does the floodplain apply, should the 500-year floodplain apply to B as well? Or is that too tight a requirement?
I don't know. I think it's something to consider.
Well,
I don't feel
actually, so
strongly.
the example down the road is a $30,000 fix that was just done last summer, and they're probably within the 500-year floodplain.
Yeah.
So I think that's why we have it worded this way. We wanted to let them not have to hook up because they just spent $30,000.
Yeah.
No, but we can't do that for one person. We have to be fair across.
Well, I mean, just as an example, not just to appease them, but as an example.
Well, then we have to go back and look at what our goal is too, of why we're having this wastewater system.
I don't know what folks think.
Would it be worth having Amy have a look at this? To see if there's more than just that one situation?
Oh, yes, I was going to suggest that. I don't think it necessarily has to be Amy, but I do think we could give a few more examples of who falls into that category, because we know that.
Yep. This does, though, I quickly want to scroll down. No variances, no new encroachments. Application for connection, blah, blah, blah. I do want to show you this. That if you get if you get a problem and the owner is unwilling, the owner of a septic system is unwilling to fix it, if they could not meet the tests up here, if they couldn't meet our majestic and ors, or if it's evident from flooding or some other change in physical circumstances that you just cannot do septic on that site anymore, the town does have the authority to require connection. And if the town, God forbid, had to pay for it out of your majestic $9,000 a year reserve fund, you could charge that back to the property. Hello, cat.
That's the mayor.
So
That seems to make sense. So number 7, does that get into what happens if someone fights this? Is that like as far as
yes,
procedure for
and
required?
this is actually 4, 5, or 6 above. Yes, because I renumbered this. Yes. The town, you've got to give the owner notice. You've got to give them some kind of reasonable time. And you have the authority later in the ordinance to enter and you have the authority to go in and enter and maintain in the event that there's non-compliance.
So I'm thinking about more the JB, the timeline on the opt-out. There's going to be a timeline on the opt-out.
Well, this is, once that system is built, that's when this whole thing starts. So we go all the way back to the beginning.
Yeah,
Authority,
if they
purpose,
want to
general
avoid-
provision.
If they want to avoid the additional fees and permitting and construction of hooking up, there's going to be some drop dead date depending on the construction timeline for hooking up,
Yep.
right?
Here we go.
And even from
This is-
Peter's perspective, how does this have to happen before the full design is complete? Like, how does that work if someone is not allowing someone on the property, for example, and they think they're going to do the opt-out option? There has to be it's not just the date of when the excavators are there building the thing. You have to back up for some design component date, right, Peter?
Right.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to put a little thought into what that date is, but there will definitely be one. If I had to guess, we're gonna need to start knowing this for sure towards late summer, fall of this year, really. And then there's probably there can be some stragglers coming in. And there probably could be some contingencies to deal with a few, but there's going to need to be a cutoff that's like we need to have most of it ironed out, by this fall.
You're talking about a year from now.
No, you
Yeah,
said
well,
this fall.
earlier in the fall than a year from now, like 9 months from now.
That doesn't give people a whole lot of time to understand these rules, know what the opt-out options are, and to hire an engineer to meet our requirements.
I hear you. We got a pretty condensed schedule going on here. Like this thing's going to get built in spring of 2026. And
the choice is pretty apparent. And if you can land on this by March town meeting, folks they've got an opportunity and they can take advantage of it or not.
They're essentially gonna, if we finalize this in town meeting, let's just say early March, they're gonna have about 6 months to fight this and to meet our requirements is what we're saying.
One thing, Jim, that I think this committee and the select board needs to consider is like how badly, like once we know kind of where we're landing on the people who want it and they don't, like how badly do you want to fight the people who just don't want it? Like, do you want to tie this up into legal shenanigans, or you're just gonna like let them go?
So,
And
yeah.
I don't know the answer to that.
I guess that's what my roundabout way of getting that question answered is, if someone decides they're not gonna hook up, they're not gonna let anyone on their property, they may not even apply for try to even meet the opt-out criteria, they're not gonna hire an engineer, they're just not gonna do anything.
What are we,
Do
what
we
are
just-
you as the town gonna do, right?
Right, that's my question, I guess, is what, and do we need to state that in this document? What our procedure is? Or
No,
we
you
just
don't.
like, let them go but we may get 10 landowners out of the 50 here that which we would lose 20% of our,
Okay,
our hookups.
What you, at some point, Jim, and I had to say this, Emily's off the call, right?
Yes, you had to leave.
Okay. And I said this to Julie Moore when we were at WEFTEC. I said at some point these people are grown ass adults to make their own decisions. You can't, what are you gonna do? This is the part of the ordinance that says cost of connection fees to be paid prior to connection. As part of its initial construction of its sewage works for the service area, the town can instruct a portion or the whole of any building sewer to the extent and manner determined by the board. It's now. And Pete will set the date by which they need to know, or else everything's got to come back and it's at their expense.
Okay, I guess I just want us as a commission to go in eyes wide open.
Yep.
That yes, there's all of these hammers if you do not hook up and you have to hook up later. There's all of this financial burden that you're going to bear. But if they don't do anything and their system just keeps on going, even though it doesn't meet our criteria, we're not going to force them to hook up. We're just telling them that when they do have to hook up, they're going to be paying a lot of money.
Or when the health inspector goes over and finds it's failed, they will be paying.
Right, but we're not, the sewer commission.
You're saying that, how do you know? You don't want to be on the commission. Don't say that.
The sewer.
Don't say.
The sewer commission is not going to force anyone to hook up unless there's something that is essentially failing if they decide not to do anything.
I don't know
that you want to say that,
I would
Jim.
not say that. Do not-
I mean, that's going to be the reality though.
Well, is this gonna be a civil penalty? This ordinance?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, I just trying to figure out the different scenarios here. Because
It might happen, but I wouldn't say it.
okay.
Because then it gives them an out.
No,
Right.
we're not gonna say it out loud. I'm just, I'm wondering what's the reality on the ground when we get 10 landowners here that to say, I'm not gonna do anything.
Well, I think it's a decision that the town's gonna need to make at some point, because it's gonna be a financial consideration. But we kind of need to get to the point where we have people signing up more officially and we know exactly where we are. We're not quite there yet.
There will be a few.
The part of the reason why the committee got to this point and is just as a reminder is that we need enough users to pay for the O&M costs, or any costs really for that matter, right?
And the buyout didn't help.
And the buyout didn't help, right?
No. More towns going through that too.
So JB, again, back to the semantics. I know we have to be called it has to be called the sewer commission. Do we need to
No,
have sewer in there, like number 2, building sewer and sewer?
Building
works
sewer
and-
is a term of art in engineering. It's the pipe that conveys sanitary wastewater out to a closed conveyance. So
Sewer
building
works.
sewer is sewage works. I mean, I am never a fan, as trained by Steve Stitzel, I am never a fan of getting definitions very far away from the standards and practices readily accepted in state law.
Okay.
The word
Uh,
sewage shall be synonymous with the word wastewater. And
I
if
just
you
want.
want to do a search and destroy and replace sewage with wastewater, I like wastewater less because we shouldn't waste water. But you can do a search and destroy at some point.
Okay, I just want to do a time check. We're over now. I don't know where we are, JP, in our review here. It seemed like this was
No,
this the
that
last
was my
one?
last. That was see that this has
Okay.
been my lodestar for the last 3 days. That was my list to get you a functional new draft.
Okay,
I am yeah.
this looks great, but
Those
we
were
didn't
all
get
the ugly issues.
we didn't get to the commission yet.
Yep.
So you want to hold off on that till the second?
You got that. I handed off the bylaws, mark them up as you see fit, name yourselves the, sneaky sewer snakes or whatever the heck you want to do. But those bylaws don't have the same kinds of encumbrances that an ordinance does. It's really just your own operating charter for how you want that group to work.
And we have a draft of that could you send that
Yep.
out with this updated draft that we're working on here for the
Well,
ordinance?
Tori, I haven't done anything with those bylaws since I sent them to you.
Can we get an update of this document that we're working on?
This one, yes, you will get it with color coding
Okay.
and French fries,
There was like
seasoned.
1 or 2 comments on the bylaws from last meeting, and I just wanted to follow up one more time
Okay.
with Linda to make sure there were any other little details in there.
And can we get like several set of qualified eyeballs on the what we're calling the opt-out section, Forest and Peter, another person at Stone, you said you might have one take a look at it if Amy's not available, and Alan, I don't know if you want to take a look at it more closely.
Amy, what Julie Beth, I didn't say Amy couldn't look at it. She's welcome to look at it, and that's not a problem.
Yeah.
The Julie Beth's request was to look at the specific examples of who may be falling into that 2007 to present.
Right.
We have a permit and an existing system already built category.
So we can look that up.
We can look that up. We have that. I can circle back with you. I was suggesting that didn't need to be Amy. I'm happy to have Amy take a look at that section.
That would be great. So we'd have some real life examples.
Yeah.
I guess we're at a good stopping point. So we're going to
Okay.
meet on January 2nd.
Yep.
And at 3 and January 9th. Linda, is this really free?
It might be the forest committee on the 9th.
Yeah.
No. I'll put it on here and I'll find out before.
If Linda, if that doesn't work, going back to our usual Tuesdays, it's a little bit of a tight squeeze with Amy and her break, but we could just make that work if we have to go back to that Tuesday.
Bradley, do you have your laptop up? Any way you can check the forest committee next January meeting date?
Yeah.
Isn't it the second Thursday of the month?
Got it as January 9th.
At What time?
6 to 8.
Six.
Could we, Ellen, is there any chance you could do 4 to 6 on the night? I just want to make sure we get Amy, either we got to do Tuesday and it sounds like Amy's just coming back from vacation.
Well, she's
Or-
available. It just doesn't leave us a lot of time between Monday and Tuesday. But if that works better and we just want to stick with the 5 to 7 on the Tuesday, that's okay with me. We'll just make it work.
The 7th?
Yeah.
Okay, January 2nd at 3 and January 7th at 5, right?
Yep.
I think we made some good progress tonight. Thank you for leading that, JB.
Oh, my pleasure. I think this is great. And I know it's like about as much fun as having invasive dentistry, but that was my list of the scary stuff, and we're good.
And so on the second, Peter will have
Yes.
maybe
Yeah. So
we'll
what I'm
look at the 30% too, Peter, and of maybe
I would
more
think so,
comprehensive,
yeah.
more comprehensive look on the 7th. Like stuff we're like ready to send to the select board on the 7th after our meeting, maybe.
Yeah, I guess it depends what kind of feedback we get, but
Yeah, I don't, it doesn't matter, but I don't want to really put you on the agenda till February because
well,
we're
I was gonna
dealing
say,
with
really,
with
yeah, the
budgets.
part of the reason I'm not sure it makes a huge difference because part of the reason you're right, Linda. We were talking about going to the select board in February anyway, and the main thing
Yeah.
was just making sure that you could be at the meeting, right, Jim, since your end of January gets a little tight.
For me, Peter?
Yeah.
I'm gonna be out of town, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I mean. I think it's important that you're there, so that'll be good.
Do we still need to, based on what we have left to do on the ordinance, JB, and
Yep.
we'll take another look at the bylaw. And Peter, what you're gonna present to us on the 30%. Do we need 2 meetings back-to-back meetings in January? Based on what we did tonight?
I'm not following you, Jim.
Do we still need the 2nd and the 7th?
Oh, I think so, yeah. If we're
Okay.
gonna do both the ordinance,
Yeah.
I think
I do.
probably.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, let's just keep it that then, okay.
I mean, I guess if we
Just
get
don't have to
surprised
be
on the
here for
3rd,
2
if we get
hours.
surprised on the 3rd, great, we'll cancel the 7th, but I don't think that's gonna happen.
The 7th is really our regular public meeting, and the 2nd is an extra one, but we should put them both on our website. Okay, sounds good.
Okay.
Thank you,
Right.
everyone. I guess,
Thanks,
I
everybody.
guess we'll be adjourned.
Merry
and,
Christmas to everyone.
happy holidays, everyone, and
See you on the other side.
Yeah, happy holidays.
all right.
Take care.
Getting there.
Your mom's on the screen, so you can just.
Why don't they get a wireless? They can't even do anything.
Maybe they left it on, that's why they did it. Left it on, that's why.